Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Here's a story about how a single photo shattered everything I thought was real and what I did after I stopped shaking. It started on a Wednesday. I remember that because I was reheating soup for dinner and the microwave made that annoying beep beep just as my phone lit up. I almost ignored it. But then I saw it, a notification that would erase everything I believed about the person I was about to marry. It was from someone I didn't recognize. Just a name, Ashar, no message, no context, just a single image attached. And when I opened it, time didn't slow down. It just stopped. There she was, my fiancée, dressed in something tight and glittery I'd never seen before, laughing mid-spin on some guy's shoulders, holding a champagne bottle like it was a trophy. Her eyes wild, her mouth wide open in what looked like a scream of joy, or maybe defiance. Her engagement ring, the one I gave her, glinting under strobe lights. The caption read, "She said she was going to sleep early, LOL skull." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My spoon slipped from my hand and hit the floor, but I didn't hear it. Because here's the thing, I hadn't even suspected anything. There were no warning signs. No shady texts. No weird disappearances. We had just finalized our guest list 3 days ago. She had picked out her wedding perfume that morning. And yet, there she was, at what looked like the kind of party I wouldn't be caught dead at. A wild, raging, lights blinding, shirtless people dancing kind of party. And the guy she was on, he wasn't just holding her legs. His hands were creeping up like he owned her. She told me she was having a quiet night in with her bridesmaids. She even said she might be asleep early and not to call. So why was she there? And why was some total stranger sending me this? I replied to the number. "Me, who are you?" "Ashar, not important. Just figured you should know before you waste your life." I stared at those words for maybe 10 minutes. The soup got cold. The air got thick. My whole body felt like it was made of glass. I had spent 2 years planning a future with this woman. I had sold my dad's vintage watch to help pay for the venue. I had invited every single person I cared about to watch me marry someone who apparently had no problem lying to my face. And the worst part? She came home 2 hours later, hair washed, pajamas on, smelling like lavender and pretending nothing had happened. She even kissed my neck and said, "I missed you." I didn't speak. I didn't eat. I just stared at her, wondering how many other times she had looked me in the eyes with a mouth full of lies. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking the photo again and again, zooming in like there was some way to prove it wasn't her. That maybe it was photoshopped. A joke. A prank. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I knew exactly what I was seeing. By morning, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to ask for an explanation I already knew I wouldn't believe. Instead, I opened my laptop, canceled every single wedding contract, one by one. I didn't even care about the money. I just wanted the whole thing to disappear. And then, without telling anyone, not my friends, not my mom, not even my best man, I booked a one-way bus ticket to a town I'd never been to before. I packed a duffel bag, left the ring in the sink, deleted my socials, turned off my phone, and vanished. But the story didn't end there. Because what happened after I disappeared, that's when things got really disturbing. The bus ride was 12 hours long. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't sleep. Just stared out the window as the landscape blurred into nothing. I didn't even know what I was looking for when I picked that town off the map. It was called Millridge, middle of nowhere, barely had cell service, and that's exactly what I needed. I figured if I could disappear, I could maybe forget. But the truth is, forgetting doesn't work when you're haunted by silence. For 2 days after I left, I didn't hear from Rowan. Not a single call. No texts. Nothing. And that silence, it wasn't peaceful, it was loud. Deafening. Because when someone doesn't reach out after you vanish, it tells you everything you were afraid to admit. That maybe they didn't care as much as you did. That maybe your absence was just easier than your presence. But then, late on the third night, her name lit up my phone. I stared at it for so long that the screen dimmed. Eventually, curiosity beat my pride. I opened the message. "Hey, are you okay? I noticed your location turned off. Did something happen?" Not, "Where are you?" Not, "I'm worried." Just vague concern, like she was checking on a coworker who missed a meeting. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Then came another. "I hope you're not mad about the other night. It was harmless fun. You trust me, right?" Trust. The word made me feel sick. The next one came an hour later. "I don't like being ignored, Lowell. If you needed space, you could have just said so." That one hit hard. I needed space. She didn't stop. Over the next 24 hours, I got a stream of messages, some apologetic, some defensive, some angry. She flipped through emotions like a deck of cards. It was just a party, Lowell. You're overreacting. I didn't cheat. You know how I get when I drink. My friend said you're being controlling. You're going to throw away everything over one night. But then, she slipped up. In one message, she wrote, Jet didn't mean anything, I swear. I didn't even know he was going to be there. I reread that 10 times. Jet didn't mean anything. So now she was admitting it, at least part of it. There was something. She didn't say what happened exactly, but even her version of nothing clearly involved someone she had no business being near that night. Still, I didn't reply. I wasn't ready. Instead, I sat on a rotting bench outside the rundown lodge I was staying at, watching the fog roll in over the fields like slow smoke. There were cows in the distance, some broken fence posts, and one of those motel vending machines that still took quarters. It felt like another planet. And maybe that was the point. But isolation has a funny way of turning your thoughts against you. I started wondering, what if I ruined this? What if I just asked her, face to face, given her a chance to explain? What if she really was just letting loose one last time? People do dumb things when they're drunk, right? I mean, don't they? No, that photo wasn't just a mistake. It was a message, a version of herself I'd never seen and never would have approved of because she never intended for me to see it. That was the part one couldn't shake. The secrecy, the lies she told me straight to my face while she was laughing on some stranger's shoulders. I scrolled back through her messages again, and one stood out. You're going to throw away everything over one night. That's when something inside me cracked. Because it wasn't just one night. It was every day she told me she loved me while hiding this side of herself. It was every wedding decision she made while planning to blow off steam in ways she knew I wouldn't be okay with. It was 1,000 little lies wrapped in glitter and lipstick and fake promises. And yet, somehow, I still missed her. That was the most humiliating part of all. I fell asleep that night fully clothed, phone in my hand, brain on fire. I had no idea what I was going to do next. Whether I'd go back. Whether I'd ghost her forever. Whether I'd even have the strength to tell people the wedding was off. But when I woke up the next morning, something unexpected happened. She was there, standing outside the lodge, soaking wet from the rain, with a suitcase in one hand and something behind her back. And that changed everything. I opened the door slowly. Part of me hoped I was hallucinating from lack of sleep, or that it was someone who looked like her. But no, there she was. Rowan, shivering on the steps of the old wood-paneled lodge, her coat clinging to her, raindrops catching in her lashes. She looked small, fragile, almost unfamiliar. I didn't say anything. I just stood there. She didn't speak either, not right away. Just gave a kind of guilty half-smile and held up the small suitcase. I brought your favorite hoodie, she said. Not I'm sorry. Not please come back. Just that. A hoodie. I should have shut the door right then. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped aside and let her in. The room smelled like dust and desperation. I hadn't cleaned in days, and there was still a half-eaten granola bar on the windowsill. She walked in like it was sacred ground, glancing at the one chair, the unmade bed, my crumpled bag in the corner. You really left? She whispered, as if realizing it for the first time. You really vanished. I nodded. Rowan sat down slowly, unzipped her suitcase, and pulled out the hoodie. She laid it on the bed like it was an offering. And then she reached behind her back and revealed something I didn't expect. An envelope. It was sealed. Thick. Not a letter, more like a bundle. She handed it to me without a word. I didn't open it. Not yet. I just stared at her. What is this? I asked. She hesitated. Proof, she said softly, that it didn't go how you think it did. That line made my stomach turn, because I didn't know how it went. I only knew what I saw, and the part of me that still clung to hope, the weak, embarrassingly loyal part, wanted to believe there was some missing context. That maybe she hadn't cheated. That maybe things weren't what they looked like. She watched me for a long time as I held the envelope. Then she finally spoke again. Jet's my ex. That hit like a slap. My shoulders stiffened. Excuse me. He was at the party. I didn't know he'd be there, she continued, her voice shaking now. My friends thought it would be funny to invite him. As a joke. They didn't think you'd ever find out. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. A joke? Dancing on his shoulders while holding a bottle like you won the lottery? That was a joke? I didn't do anything with him, she said quickly. I swear. I was drunk, and it got out of hand. But I didn't cross any lines. You didn't think being on your ex's shoulders might be considered crossing a line? I snapped. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw the woman I used to know. Vulnerable. Scared. But I couldn't let myself fall for that face again. Not yet. I came here to fix it, she whispered. Open the envelope. I did. Inside were photos, screenshots, messages. Her entire conversation with her friends leading up to the party. Warnings, hesitations, even a message from her to Brinley saying, if Jet shows up, I'm leaving. Only she didn't. Because the very next message, hours later, was, too drunk. Might stay a bit. Don't tell Lowell. I stared at that sentence like it had teeth. It didn't matter what happened after. That one message said it all. She chose to stay. She chose not to tell me. That wasn't a mistake. That was a decision. Rowan must have seen the realization hit me, because she stopped talking. Silence filled the room again. Heavy, awkward, charged. Finally, she said, I didn't come to defend what I did. I wanted you to see I wasn't trying to betray you. I panicked. I wanted to feel free before everything got locked in. I made a stupid choice. I folded the envelope and dropped it on the table. Why didn't you tell me? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. Because she didn't need to. We both knew the truth. She didn't tell me because she knew I would leave. And she was right. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out into the foggy fields. Then I said it, 4 words that felt like peeling my own skin off. I'm not coming back. Rowan let out a sound, half cry, half gasp. Please. Lowell, don't do this. We can fix it. We can. No, I said, turning around. You didn't lose me at that party. You lost me the moment you looked at me the next day and lied to my face. She didn't fight after that. She didn't scream or beg or throw herself at me. She just sat there, shrinking into the chair, her hands shaking in her lap. And then, quietly, she asked, is there someone else? The question stunned me. Not because of what it implied, but because I wasn't sure how to answer. Because there was someone. Not a person, but something. A version of myself I hadn't met before. A man who finally decided that being disrespected in silence was worse than being alone. And that version of me. He wasn't done disappearing yet. Rowan didn't stay long after that. She left the lodge quietly, suitcase dragging behind her like a dead weight. I watched from the window as she stood in the gravel lot for a few moments, staring at her car as if it might give her the answer I couldn't. Then she got in and drove off. No dramatic exit, no last words, just brake lights disappearing into fog. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time afterward, the room dead silent except for the slow tick of the wall clock. My phone was still buzzing every now and then, friends, family, probably wondering why the wedding site was offline, why the RSVP system was down. I didn't respond. I couldn't bring myself to explain yet. Not when I was still unraveling what exactly had just happened. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought that moment, the goodbye in the rain, would be the final page in a messy chapter. I was wrong. 2 days later, something happened that changed the entire tone of this story. I had taken to walking in the early mornings, just to clear my head. Millridge had a small nature trail behind the diner that cut through the woods and looped back around to a deserted gas station on the outskirts of town. It wasn't scenic. It was mostly dead trees and mud, but it gave me space to think. That morning, I stopped at the gas station to grab a coffee, burnt, watery stuff from a crusty machine. I stepped outside and leaned against a pillar, staring at the horizon like maybe I'd suddenly understand something. That's when I noticed the car. It was idling across the lot, dark blue, windows tinted. I figured someone was just waiting on a passenger, so I didn't think much of it. But then the window rolled down just a bit, and a hand reached out, waving. I squinted. Didn't recognize the driver. Male. Sunglasses. Mid-30s maybe. He motioned for me to come over. Now, I should have walked away. Everything in me told me not to approach. But curiosity can be louder than caution when you've already had your heart ripped out. I walked toward the car, slowly, coffee still in hand. You Lowell? The guy asked. The voice was unfamiliar. Neutral. Controlled. I hesitated. Who's asking? I'm a friend of Jet's, he said. Instant chills. Jet, the same name from the photo. The ex. The one Rowan said didn't mean anything. What do you want? I asked, already regretting coming closer. The man leaned forward slightly, his sunglasses reflecting my confused face. Thought you should know, Jet didn't send that photo. I blinked. What? He pulled something from the glove compartment, a printed screenshot. It was the same image. Rowan on his shoulders. The champagne bottle. The chaos. But this version had a visible username on the top corner. @BrinleyXoxo. Her bridesmaid. Rowan's closest friend. The guy handed me the paper. Brinley posted it. Jet actually told her to take it down. Didn't want to cause drama. My head was spinning. I couldn't even process it fast enough. Why are you telling me this? I asked. The guy shrugged. Because Jet's not trying to blow up anyone's life. He moved on years ago. He doesn't want Rowan back. He's actually kind of pissed she used him as an excuse. That last line hit like a punch to the ribs. She used him as an excuse? The man didn't answer directly. Just said, "You seem like the type that doesn't get the full story unless someone spells it out." He rolled up the window and drove off, leaving me standing in the middle of a parking lot, holding a soggy paper cup and a revelation I never asked for. I walked back to the lodge in a daze. Everything Rowan said was unraveling in reverse. The mistake she admitted to, the warnings about Jet showing up, the envelope full of messages carefully curated to prove her innocence. None of it added up anymore. It wasn't about what she told me. It was about what she hid. That night, I opened my laptop for the first time in days. Logged into the email I used for the wedding. Hundreds of unread messages. Vendors, guests, a few people asking if we were okay. One subject line stopped me cold. Bridesmaid speech approval, urgent. It was from Brinley, dated 2 weeks before the party. Inside the message, one sentence burned a hole through my screen. Rowan said she wants her last weekend of freedom to be unforgettable. I just hope Lowell never finds out. I stared at it for what felt like forever. That was it. That was the final straw. It wasn't a mistake. It was premeditated. I didn't sleep that night. My thoughts were clawing at each other in the dark. I kept going over the emails, the texts, the half-truths Rowan told me to my face. My heart wasn't just broken, it felt humiliated. She hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't lost control. She had planned a weekend away from me, filled with chaos, lies, and a little thrill before she put on a white dress and vowed to be faithful forever. And the worst part? She didn't even hide it well. That message from Brinley was just the beginning. I typed her name into every social media platform I could think of. Search tags, DMs, buried accounts. And after about an hour of digging, I found something she never meant for me to see. A shared Google document. It was titled, "The Weekend Before Forever Itinerary." I shouldn't have clicked it. Every instinct told me not to. But I did. And what I read flipped everything upside down. The document was created by Brinley, shared with Rowan and 2 other bridesmaids. It was color-coded, detailed, and disturbingly enthusiastic. There were headers like, Friday night, no rules, no regrets. Saturday, spa, shots, secrets. Sunday, delete everything before Lowell asks questions. Under Friday night, it listed clubs, outfit suggestions, even a game titled, Who Can Get the Most Free Drinks Without Mentioning the Groom. Under Saturday, there was a note beside Rowan's name. Jet confirmed. Should be there around 10. Don't let Rowan back out again. And finally, Sunday's section included. Rowan's phone gets wiped before brunch. No hangovers. No guilt. I sat there staring at that last sentence like it was written in fire. Wiped before brunch. They knew. They planned it. And they laughed about hiding it from me like it was some sort of self-care ritual. I was so angry I could barely move. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. Instead, I just stared at the screen until my eyes dried out. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a full-blown conspiracy to make sure I never knew who I was about to marry. I thought back to every conversation we had the month leading up to the wedding. The random, "I love you," texts Rowan would send at 3 a.m. The canceled dinners. The sudden interest in Pilates, the unexplained bruises, the "I need to feel like myself again" speech that I pretended not to take personally. All of it made sense now. But nothing hit harder than remembering the way she looked at me the morning after the party. The fake concern, the soft voice, the lie wrapped in casual comfort. Movie night turned into a bar crawl. No, it turned into her last ride before locking down a life she clearly wasn't ready for. I knew I couldn't stay in Millridge much longer. The town was starting to feel like a hiding place, and I didn't want to hide anymore. I wanted answers, not the edited version she gave me, Not the polished envelope with curated texts, but the truth. All of it. No filters. No tears. So I packed. I didn't go home. Not to our apartment. Not to the life we were building together. I went to Brinley's. She lived in a city a few hours away. I remembered her address from the wedding invites she was supposed to send. As soon as I pulled up to her place, my stomach dropped. It was one of those high-rise luxury buildings with a front desk and valet parking. She had always pretended to be just one of the girls, but clearly, she was living in a different league. I waited until she came out to walk her dog. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy yelling into her phone, probably about spa appointments or someone showing up to brunch without lashes on. But when I stepped in front of her and said her name, she froze. Brinley. She pulled off her sunglasses slowly. Lowell, what are you doing here? I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just held up my phone with the document open. Read it, I said. She stared at it like it was radioactive. I didn't think you'd ever see that, she muttered. No kidding. There was a long silence. Finally, she said, Rowan didn't want to do it. She was nervous. She said she wasn't sure if she could go through with the wedding. That knocked the air out of me. She what? Brinley looked away. She was scared. She said things were moving too fast. That she needed to feel like she had one last chance to be free. Free. The word made me want to scream. She had freedom, Brinley. I never trapped her. I never said no. I would have postponed the wedding if she asked. I would have. I know, she said quietly. But she didn't want to hurt you. So she lied instead. Brinley didn't answer. I turned and walked away. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. But as I reached the corner, I heard her shout after me. She said you were too safe. That you made her feel like she was already old. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to hear anymore. Because in that moment, I finally understood. Rowan didn't want safety. She wanted danger. She just didn't want to pay the price when it burned her. I don't know how long I walked that day. Hours maybe. My legs went numb before my thoughts did. I passed parks, construction sites, bridal boutiques, and cafes full of couples laughing over coffee. Each one felt like a tiny punch to the chest. Like a reminder of the future I had been designing in my head while Rowan had been crafting her escape hatch. That night, I didn't go to a hotel. I parked my car outside a 24-hour laundromat and sat in the front seat, staring blankly at the blinking red open sign as it pulsed like a warning light. I hadn't cried in days, but I wanted to. The tears were there, but they were stuck, hardened into something colder, heavier. In my pocket, my phone vibrated again. It was Rowan. Please just talk to me. I ignored it. Then another. You don't understand how scared I was. And then, the wedding was supposed to fix us. I thought it would make me feel ready. It didn't. That last one, it did something to me. I stared at it for so long the screen dimmed and locked. The wedding was supposed to fix us. As if marriage was a therapy session. As if promising me forever would somehow heal the part of her that still craved chaos. And that's when it hit me. This wedding had never really been for us. It had been for appearances. For Instagram. For her mother. For the guest list. For the idea of being a wife before she was ready to actually live like one. And I had walked right into it, ring in hand, blindfold on. I opened my notes app and started writing. Not a reply to her, just thoughts. Honest ones. Angry ones. The kinds of things I'd been too polite to say out loud for years. I wrote about how it felt to constantly be the stable one. The one holding everything together while she danced on emotional landmines. I wrote about how many times I excused red flags as quirks. How often I convinced myself that love meant tolerating discomfort. I wrote until sunrise. Then I did something I hadn't planned on doing. I drove back home. The place still smelled like lavender and vanilla, the scent of her favorite candles. There were still sticky notes on the fridge reminding us to confirm table layouts. Her wedding shoes sat in their box by the bedroom mirror. My tuxedo, untouched, still hung in the closet with the tag on. Time had stopped inside those walls, as if the apartment hadn't realized the wedding was already dead. I didn't pack. I destroyed. I took everything wedding-related and dumped it in the living room. Guest lists, menus, our custom vows she insisted we write on recycled parchment paper. I put them all in a pile and sat in front of it. Not to burn it. No, that would have been too dramatic. I just wanted to look at it. To feel the weight of what we almost became. Then came a knock at the door. I didn't have to check who it was. I knew. Rowan. She stepped in cautiously, like she wasn't sure if I'd slam the door in her face. She looked different. No makeup, hair tied back, no performance, just her. The version I met once at the DMV. The version I thought I fell in love with. I know I don't have a right to ask anything, she said quietly, but I need you to hear this. I said nothing. I panicked. I thought getting married would fix how restless I've always been. I thought if I looked the part, maybe the part would change me. But I never asked if you were happy. I just wanted to feel safe, and you were the safest thing I've ever known. I let her speak. I didn't cheat on you, she said, eyes locked on mine. I swear to you I didn't. But I lied. And I broke something. And I don't know if it's fixable, but I'm here because I'm willing to carry whatever it takes if it means you'll come back. I closed my eyes. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to climb back into the illusion where we were okay, where all of this was just a hiccup in an otherwise happy love story. But then I remembered the doc, the party, the laughter, the plan to wipe her phone before brunch. You didn't cheat, I repeated. You just rehearsed. That stopped her cold. I don't need more promises, I said. I need to be with someone who doesn't have to erase their weekends to love me. She broke then, quietly, sat down on the floor next to the pile of what should have been our future and cried. And I just watched her. For once, I didn't feel weak for saying nothing. I felt free, like I wasn't the one losing something anymore. I canceled the venue, I said softly. It's done. She nodded, wiping her cheeks. I figured. Another silence. Are you going to tell people what happened? She asked. No, I said. Because I don't owe anyone a story. And you don't deserve the attention. She flinched, but didn't argue. We sat there like ghosts in a home we no longer belonged to. And as the sun crept higher through the blinds, I realized something strange. This didn't feel like heartbreak anymore. It felt like survival. The days that followed were surreal. Rowan didn't try to move back in. She didn't beg or plead or send flowers. Instead, she began what I can only describe as her apology tour. One by one, she started reaching out to people we both knew, mutual friends, her parents, even my sister, and began offering what I can only assume were filtered versions of what happened. We grew apart. He got cold feet. It just wasn't our time. Not once did she mention the truth, that I left because I saw her for who she really was. A woman preparing to settle down while secretly resenting the very life she was building with me. Word got around quickly. Some people messaged me with sympathy, assuming I was the one who got dumped. A few of her friends even hinted that I must have done something to make her spiral the way she did, that I probably pressured her into getting married before she was ready. One even implied that I was too boring to keep her attention, like I was a worn-out coat she tried to love but couldn't keep wearing. I ignored most of it, but one message stood out. It was from Rowan's cousin, a woman named Sadie. We'd only spoken a handful of times, mostly during holidays or birthday dinners. But she wrote me something that made me stop mid-scroll. I don't know if this helps or hurts, but she was always chasing what made her feel wanted, even if it meant hurting the people who actually cared. I read it 5 times. It didn't explain everything, but it explained enough. Still, there was one thing I hadn't done. One thing I avoided like the plague since I left that lodge in Millridge. I hadn't told my parents. They were set to fly out 2 days before the wedding. I'd canceled their flight with some vague excuse about a change of plans, but I hadn't gone into detail. I didn't want them to see me like this, ashamed, unraveling, unsure of who I was or what I'd almost committed to. But now it was time. I sat down and wrote the hardest message I've ever written. I didn't send it as a text. I wrote it by hand, on real paper. It felt more honest that way, more grounded. I wanted them to hear it not as news, but as a son talking to his parents from a place of pain and clarity. Here's what I wrote. Mom, Dad, you've probably guessed by now that the wedding's not happening. What you don't know is why. It wasn't because we fought. It wasn't because I changed my mind. It was because I discovered that the woman I was about to marry had no intention of being honest with me. Maybe not ever. She didn't cheat, at least not in the way people define it. But she planned to disappear into a version of herself I was never meant to see. She wanted one last reckless night, one last secret, one last thrill behind my back. And I only found out because a stranger thought I deserved to know. She lied to my face the morning after, slept beside me like nothing happened, smiled at me like the man she was about to marry wasn't an afterthought in her plans. And when confronted, she didn't beg for forgiveness. She gave explanations, scripts, half-truths meant to preserve whatever version of herself she still believed in. I walked away because staying would have taught her that I could be broken into and still offer love on the other side. I don't need pity. I'm not writing this for comfort. I just want you to know your son finally chose himself. And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel lost. Love. Lowell. I sealed it, drove to their house, handed it to my dad without saying a word, and then I left again. But this time, not to hide. I got in my car and drove straight to the art supply store downtown. Bought a new journal. A real one. Thick pages. Leather cover. I needed to stop writing pain into a phone. I needed to make something physical again. That night, I started my first entry. It wasn't about Rowan. It wasn't about what happened. It was about what I wanted, not in a woman, but in me. I wrote about trust, about boundaries, about silence, and how heavy it gets when it's full of unsaid things. I wrote about how easy it is to mistake emotional exhaustion for love, about how loneliness in a relationship feels louder than loneliness alone. And for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like a man waiting for someone to choose him. I felt like a man choosing his own damn peace. But just as I was beginning to breathe again, my phone lit up with a notification that sent my pulse racing. Rowan. Only this time, it wasn't a message. It was a photo, a screenshot, of me, posted to a private group chat, with a caption that said, "He finally cracked. Guess we broke him after all." My throat went dry, and right then, I knew she wasn't finished. I stared at that screenshot for a long time. Her message wasn't angry. It wasn't regretful. It was a mockery, casual cruelty dressed in emojis and laughter. Proof that even after everything, Rowan was still performing, still spinning her version of events to people who were more interested in gossip than truth, still clinging to control in the only way she knew how, by trying to paint me as the weak one, the fool, the joke. But this time, it didn't break me. It didn't even bend me. Because for the first time in my life, I understood something I wish I'd learned years ago. Choosing peace isn't weakness. It's power. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. I didn't craft the perfect reply or send a long-winded explanation begging for dignity. I simply blocked the number, deleted the message, and put my phone on airplane mode. Then I went outside. There's a little diner in my new neighborhood with cracked booths and an old jukebox that never plays the song you pick. The owner's a widow who talks too much and refills your coffee before you can say no. I started coming there more often. I didn't tell anyone my story. I just existed. One morning, a little girl in the next booth dropped her fork. I picked it up, handed it back, and smiled. Her mom thanked me, made a joke about how men still have manners these days, and we laughed like two strangers who didn't need anything from each other. That's when I realized I didn't need closure from Rowan. I didn't need validation from anyone. I didn't even need revenge. What I needed was to reclaim my own voice from the version of me that used to flinch when someone raised theirs. I wasn't the man she could laugh about in group chats anymore. I was the man who walked away, not because he was broken, but because he refused to be. It's been 6 months now. The wedding that never was has faded into a story I don't repeat out loud often. Some people still ask, mostly out of curiosity. I tell them the truth, but only the parts that matter. That I loved someone who didn't love me in the way I needed. That I left, and that leaving saved my life. Do I still think about her? Sometimes, but not with bitterness. Just with clarity. She wasn't evil. She was just wrong for me. And sometimes that's enough. Now I live in a small town where no one knows my name. I write. I walk. I've even started sketching again. I don't check her socials. I don't replay that party video in my head. I don't wait for a what if. Because I finally found what I was really chasing all along. Peace. And that, more than any wedding, feels like forever. Thank you for listening to my story here on Reddit Confessions. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever walked away from something, or someone, that everyone else thought you should fight for? Drop your story in the comments. I promise, someone out there needs to read it. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true confessions every week. Until next time, choose yourself. Always.